and I'm here to introduce Dave. Dave Hyde. Danny, nice to meet you. Dave has worked on behalf of blind children and adults for the last 50 years. He has served on state and national boards, chaired national committees, taught in residential centers, and served the Wisconsin Center for the Blind and Visually Impaired. His experience has included working in a prison, selling insurance door to door, running an office, teaching classes in Poland, and working with state legislators. He says that what he has enjoyed the most is watching blind and visually impaired children grow up to be successful adults. He tells me there are no wrong questions, so please feel free to ask. I'm Dave Hyde.
Thank you, friends. Hold fast to dream, for when deep dreams die, life is a broken bird that cannot fly. Hold fast to dream. For when dreams go, life is a barren field covered in snow. Hold fast to dream. That's why we're here. We come together once a year for this conference to look at what we're doing and decide what's next. What's possible? What can my child do? And is it okay? We come here because we have hope. And we have hope because we see other parents around us with blind and visually impaired children, some of whom have other disabilities. And we see, my goodness sakes, look what that little girl is doing. What? We come here for hope. We come here for dreams, and we come here to learn. And then we're around long enough, we come here to teach. Because we have veterans here today who've been to these conferences almost as long as I have. And you can find them. They're the ones with the old kids. And I've made many friends out of these good people. And, you know, there is Jesse said there are no wrong questions. I've had the chance to watch your children grow up. It's marvelous. Now, I was born in 1953. I know. Somebody's, wait a minute, that's years 10 and a little bit over. You should be gone by now. But I'm still here. I was born in 1953, and I am blind because of a condition called retrolevel fibroplasia. Anybody know what that is? Didn't think so. I guess the physicians got tired of writing that on paper because they changed it to retinopathy of prematurity. But it was so fun as a kid going to talk to schools about blindness and getting kids to try to spell retrolevel fibroplasia. And retinopathy of prematurity is probably just as hard, but it doesn't sound nearly as complicated. But I was born in 1953, and I spent a couple of months in the incubator, and I came out blind. Imagine that. I was a little bitty thing. I only weighed 3 pounds and 3 ounces. And back in those days, that was a low birth weight. Now it isn't. My mother told me that I went through a number of surgeries when I was young. I don't remember any of them, but nothing worked. And the first, so, you know, she raised me like any normal kid. She didn't know any better. The first time that I found out that there was something called blind, and that had something to do with me, we were living at the Great Lakes Naval Training Center outside of Chicago. My dad was in the Navy at the time. And we were in the apartments that the Navy had there in a place called Forrestal. And we had an apartment on the second floor. There was 4 on the floor. And one of our neighbors had recently come back from serving in the Philippines, and he had married a young lady there. And she had not really adapted to how we do things here, so she had a lot of things that she brought with her from the Philippines. I was walking toward the top of the stairs one day, and my shadow fell on her. She was expecting their first baby. She pushed me down a flight of 13 concrete steps, so I wouldn't mark her baby. Or so her baby would not be mine. I didn't really understand why she did it. But I remember crying and crying and crying, not because I went down the stairs, because somebody had pushed me, and she lived right next door. My second memory of that time was during the winter, and we got snow in Chicago. Imagine that. And I was sick, and I could not go outside and play in the snow. My mom wanted me to learn what snow was, so she brought in a bucket of snow. And I stuck my hand down in it, and that stuff was cold. So I was a logical child. I said, well, if it's cold, let me warm it up a little bit. And I started overheating, registered, and took a nap. When I got back, I discovered that somebody had taken my bucket of snow, replaced it with just a bucket of tepid water. I wasn't happy about that. Sometimes it's hard to show blind children what some things are. My house was an apartment, but it had 4 walls to a room, yeah. It had a tile floor. It had a ceiling that if somebody raised me up, I could feel the ceiling. And then it had this thing called a roof. Nobody could really explain to me what the roof was. And it was way up there, and I was too short to reach it. One Saturday morning, there were people banging and doing things up above our heads. And they were working on the roof of the building. They took off for lunch, and my mother decided that it was a good time to let me solve that mystery of that roof thing. And we climbed up the ladder. And we got on the roof, and it was rough. It was slanted. It had gutters. You couldn't step in the gutters because you might fall off. And, you had to be careful where you walked up there because there were things sticking up out of the roof. Well, I explored for a little bit, and I thought, we're already up here. Why do we need that stupid ladder? So I pushed it away. The workers only worked half a day on Saturday. Our neighbors got back in the evening, and we got down. So I had plenty of time to listen to my mother talk about why they should have kept the ladder. And I learned about roofs very, very well. My mom made mistakes, but we had fun. I don't remember not having some kind of duties as a child. I was expected to do things, so I got to do things like set the table, dry dishes. I got to help in the kitchen. Well, I wasn't much help, let's be honest about it. I wasn't help at all. But my favorite place to play was right under the sink, because there were pots and pans down there. And they made noise. Oh my, did they make noise. I can remember one of these conferences where a mom and a dad and their new little girl She must have been about 2 years old. We're here and she says, I'm so worried about my daughter. All she wants to do is play under the sink. And I said, you know what? You're lucky. That little girl is thinking, and she's finding out that there are things you can do that make good and fun noises, because all of those have different sounds. And she's learning how to work with sound. I don't know what you're doing now, but that was a long time ago, so I expect that she's no longer playing up sing. My mother never seemed to wonder if I could do things as a blind person. She started learning about blindness. Oh, I must have been about 18 months old. There was a fellow by the name of Walter Dry, who was the superintendent of the school for the blind in the state of Oregon. And she would she had family in McMinnville, so we visited there periodically. And she met Mr. Dry in a restaurant, and the first thing he said is, "Oh, you've got a kid with a level 5 Liaison." Other road. And she started learning about how to do things to make things work for me. Walter told her, well, why don't you put bells on his shoes? Because he'll like the sound and he'll move his feet more and he'll learn to walk better. She did that. So I was ringing bells all the time. I'm sure it got annoying. But, that's how you do things. I learned to roller skate. I learned to take care of my pets. You learn things as you go along. Now, at that time, in about late 50s, my mom and dad got divorced, and they did because of me. It's a home record back then too. We were in Illinois, and my father decided that I should go into a facility that specialized in working with children with handicaps. Now, this wasn't anything like we have today. These were facilities where you took your kid with a disability and they relieved you of that kid, and he could stay in that place for the rest of his life. Think about it. I wonder how many real smart kids got left there. If you had motor disabilities, if you had Down syndrome, if you were blind, if you were if you had water on the brain, you got put there, and there you stayed for the rest of your life. My mom didn't see it that way. She got divorced. And we took the bus from Chicago to Coos Bay, Oregon, which is down the coast of the state. The last thing my dad did before we left Chicago, he explained to me where beef came from. I did not have a good trip, because all of a sudden hamburgers were bad things. Poor little cows. So when we took the bus all the way across country. I remember going through Nevada because the military people on the bus thought it was fun to get me to pull the lever to the slot machines. I don't know if that helped or not. I know me pulling the lever on slot machines has never helped me. You think, you're just feeding those poor things. They must be starving. I went to a school for the blind in the state of Oregon, and we started we started in kindergarten, and they went only to the ninth grade. After the ninth grade, you went to a public high school. So I got both worlds. In 1958, I started school, and we had nothing like we've got today. Child safety was something that we seemed to talk about, but we didn't put much attention to it. So one of my favorite things to play on there, we had a bridge. And this bridge wasn't anything like you'd play with now. There were two sets of steps, one at each end, and about a 24-inch wide board. No rails. And of course, you climb up there, you can run back and forth across the bridge. It was great to hide under and reenact the Three Billy Goats Gruff. If any of you remember that fairy tale. We also had a slide. Now, this was a fun slide because there were no sides to it. And we had a tile floor. And we weren't supposed to go on that slide unless the teacher was right there with us. Well, I did this. I climbed up that wooden ladder and I sat down on the slide and I fell right off onto the tile floor, and I learned where the infirmary was that day.
Oh.
My mom was not pleased. We had duties at the school and home. I had to learn how to clean my room. That meant sweeping and mopping, cleaning the sink and the radiator, getting all the dust off of the radiator, doing the windows. And we were doing that by the time I was like 9 years old. It was just expected. And this was something you did every day, and took turns doing the big jobs that had to be done. So cleaning was not a problem. I didn't enjoy it, but then again, who does, right? I'm sure some. We had the usual classes, English and math and science, and we had some unusual classes. Of course, there was Braille. There was typing. I got to take typing starting in the 4th grade. Some of you may have seen manual typewriters. That's what we used. And that's how you turned in pen work. One of the classes we had, we had a music teacher who also did plays in the community. And she did a play every year, a big musical, so we'd have 30 or 40 kids in the musical, all blind in one degree or another. And she decided that we could not only do the musical, but we could charge for it and make money. So we did. And when I was in about the 3rd grade, we got to do Peter Pan. And unlike today, I was little and cute back then. You don't have to make those comments. So I got to learn to fly. Now, let me tell you, that was a scary thing, but lots of fun. They hooked me up to cables, and there are people on each wing. And when I gave the right cue, they would pull the ropes and lift me into the air. It's a real bad time to miss a cue. Real bad. I did that one afternoon when we had an audience, and I developed a swing. What I did is I ran toward the edge of the stage, jumped up into the air, and thankfully they caught me before I went off the edge of the stage.
Oh.
But now I'm hanging from these ropes and I'm swinging back and forth. and good sized swings. I mean, you're going over the whole stage, not over the audience. What they said was when that happens, you spread out to slow down. Spread out your arms, spread out your legs. Make yourself as big as you can and reach up and down, you know. Well, some lady in the second or third row came in wearing what I am sure was a lovely hairpiece. I hope she found it again. Because I took it with I could just hear the conversation about what happened to your wig, dear? That blind kid who was flying took it away. Tell me no. I had to learn to do things in the kitchen. I had to learn, and this was back before microwaves and all those things. So I learned everything on either an electric or a gas stove. We moved around, so I had different stoves to learn on. And so, you know, I was always helping in the kitchen. If it wasn't cutting things up, it was stirring things or putting things onto the burner or taking it off the burner. So, or, you know, getting things out of the oven. You know, that's a normal thing. I never thought that that was a difficult thing until I started working with blind students and discovered that a lot of them are afraid of the heat. They feel the heat and they move away. It's a, you know, get your children accustomed to feeling that heat, and if you do it right, you can do anything at all, anything you want to by touch. But it's important to get over that fear. Now, my mom always told stories, and that may be where I got it from. And of course, being a parent of blind children, she told parents stories about me. Thanks, Mom. I can remember being on a national board at the head table of a meeting. And I got done at the meeting, we adjourned, and I came down from the dais there, and some guy grabbed me by the arm. And he says, "Did you really starch the parakeet?" No, I didn't starch the parakeet, but your mom certainly did. Thanks. I did not get to use a cane until I was about 12 or 13. And this is the change in thinking that I've had the chance to see and just, you know, fall in love with. I saw the little girl last night, her and her brother were going around with a cart, and he is not blind. He borrowed her cane. He was trying to use it too. So, you know, 3- and 4-year-olds with canes, my goodness sakes. I got a cane and started to be interested in girls at about the same time. That's a traumatic thing, both of them. So we were told that if we used a cane at a young age, we'd come to depend on it. You know, they were absolutely right. I've only used one now for about 50 years or so, and maybe 60, and yes, I depend on it. It's things for me. I like that. I remember the first kid with a cane I saw when we were in a meeting in Kansas City, and I was in the audience, and I don't remember what they were talking about, but this guy about 2 feet tall was going around and hitting all the chairs with his cane. They had a toy tied to the top of it. And he found my chair, he found me, he figured out how tough I was by hitting me a few times. Then he moved on to my neighbor. And then he discovered the radiator. Now, any of you who are jazz fans may have heard of a drummer by the name of Louis Prima. And I'm sure that's who that little boy thought he was, because that radiator made so many wonderful sounds. And it took about 5 minutes for mom and dad to say, wait a minute, maybe we ought to stop him. Because he had discovered that cane can do more than just hit things. It could hit things hard and soft. It can run across the gradient on it and make rubbing sounds. Oh, that was a fun toy. And that was my first hit with a cane. And now, if you go to a national meeting of blind people, I can tell you that there are hundreds of those children. I know they hunt in packs. And any person standing in the hall talking is an obstacle or a target.
Yeah.
So watching these children grow up with the idea that the cane is a normal thing, just exciting to me. The other quick story about that, I remember being in a convention in Phoenix. And when I got there, there was a little girl in this great big lobby screaming. At the top of her lungs, she was screaming. They had escalators you had to go up, and she was not getting on the moving sidewalk thing, not for anything at all. And Dad had to pick her up and carry her. And she screamed all the way to the top. I saw her the last day of the convention. Her dad stopped me at the top of the escalator. He says, Mr. Hyde, would you do something for me? I said, sure, what? Stand here. And when Amanda comes to the top of the escalator, catch her. She discovered that if she timed it just right, she can go up the escalator and jump over the down one before Daddy got close to her.
Oh,
And she was having more fun on that escalator because she could make Daddy do all kinds of things just to try to get her to stop. And again, getting over that fear. Okay. I'm going to close here in about 5 minutes, and then we'll go to questions. I want to say a few things about expectations. Blind people, blind children, like most children, believe a lot of what their parents tell them. And it is your attitude toward blindness and what you think your child can do that's going to feed their expectations. And yes, you're a parent. You don't want your child to get hurt. I understand that. No parent does. The more your child experiences, the better they're going to understand the world and the things around him. So touch everything you can. Now you want to be careful touching the rose bush. But you know, they can touch the rose bush. They have to be careful about it. Touch animals. Petting zoos are marvelous things. And so, by the way, are taxidermists. Why would I take my child to a taxidermist? Well, you know what? It's really hard to get a deer to stand still. But here in Wisconsin, every November, everybody's talking about deer. They're going to hunt them or they're getting hit by cars. And you're a little boy or girl, I don't know what a deer looks like. You can always get rabbits, but it's hard to get a woodchuck to sit still. Uh, Snakes. Now, I remember learning snakes because when I stayed in the dormitory at school for the blind, we had a garter snake that snuck into the dormitory. So we had all kinds of fun with that snake and the girls.
Oh,
Yeah, here, Debbie, reach out and touch this. Yeah. Then we took the snake away. It was sad. But we did have fun while he was there. Your child is going to have opportunities that we can't even think of now. Today, your child has the opportunity to do things that I can't imagine. You know, when we have, I used to tell people there are two things that a blind person will never ever do. He'll never fly a plane. He'll never drive a car. I spent $20 in 2003 for a glass of wine. Very good wine. Because it gave me the opportunity to sit down with a guy who was at our national convention, who used a co-pilot and Braille and flew a plane. It was a good glass of wine. It gave me the opportunity to challenge one of my assumptions about blindness. Can blind people fly a plane? Yes. That does not include me. I'm happy to pay extra for the guys who have flight. In 2011, one of my students drove a car at the Daytona Speedway. His name is Mark Riccobono. He's done pretty well for himself. Mark was one of my students when I worked in Colorado at the Colorado Center for the Blind, which is an adult rehabilitation center. It was a specially designed car. Blind people helped design it. It was not during the race, but he was able to drive that car independently at about 40 miles an hour. He could dodge other cars. He could dodge things thrown into his path. And he did it successfully. I've seen the car. I got to sit in the car. I'll tell you, it was just exciting. And if you look up blind driver challenge on the internet, you'll find my student, Mark Riccobono, driving the car. What's your child going to do? They live in the future. They're going to do things that we can't imagine. And you're the one who's going to encourage them to do it. You're the one who's going to help them build their dreams. Yes, it's all up to us. And that young one back there in the back, I can't tell who it is from here. But you see, she's already making herself known, and she's going to do marvelous things. All we can do is encourage and push and make mistakes. Make new mistakes. Try different things. This is an exciting time to be a blind person. This is an exciting time to be a blind child because the future is changing, and down the road, there's almost nothing we can't do. Thank you for coming to this conference. And thank you for bringing your children. And remember, hold fast to me. Thank you.
I'd like it tomorrow.
Oh, good, thank you.
Oh, sorry.
Did you really starch the parakeets?
No, the parakeet was flying around and my mom was doing she was starching my dad's whites, which is the formal uniform. And she had a bowl of starch out there on the counter and the parakeet flew into it. Oh. Anybody else? I don't think, I'm tired of hearing we talk.
One more. What is your biggest accomplishment?
Boy, I think the thing that I'm the proudest of is that I've been able over the years to work with blind children and adults and be able to assist people in getting the services they need. In my copious free time, I'm involved in the National Federation of the Blind, and that I have done for 50 years. And I get to work with blind adults who are having difficulty with the folks with DVR, help them get the training they need. But I think the most fun I have is watching the light go on for people. Example, I remember a little girl that was at our school, and she was about 5 years old. She didn't weigh over 30 pounds. And she had other things going on, so she wasn't walking very well. And so we carried her around. And one day, one of the teachers was redecorating the classroom. She wanted things hanging from the ceiling, but she don't like ladders. So guess who got to climb the ladder? So I was up on the ladder. They brought this young lady in. I came down. And then the three of us, me, the teacher, and the lady who was with doing O&M with the little girl, said, wait a minute, this is an opportunity. And we picked her up and we put her on the ladder. And we all held on to her. And then we took her to the next step. And then we took her to the next step. And she reached up with her hands and discovered the tops of people's heads. And you could just tell that light coming on. So wait a minute. The higher I go, the taller I get. And now I'm taller than all of these people. She tells me that she remembers that. I don't know if she really does or not. She might want me to feel good, but just imagine that whole thing inside her head and watch that light go on. That's what makes it worth it. Yeah, run back.
Let's go.
Maybe my friend Debbie May will ask a question.
Mr. Hyde, it's Ethan, we talked a little bit.
Yep.
And I know you have quite an extensive career. Who would you say is one of the most interesting people you've talked to in your career?
Dr. Kenneth Jernigan. Dr. Jernigan was the head of the National Federation of Blind when I joined. And he taught me a lot. He taught me how to think. He taught me how to argue. He taught me how to read legal things. He encouraged me. He taught me about good wine. He was one of the most important blind people in the 20th century. And he spent time with me. And that made a huge difference. And before he died, he gave a speech at the National Convention. And I happened to be at a meeting with him. We were waiting for other people to show up. There was just him and me in a room. And he came to me and he said, Dave, if I ever decide to do a speech at the National Convention again, it is your job to talk me out of it. And that's real trust. He was one of the most important people in my life. If you get a chance to even, you have free time, read some of his publications. Mr. Wenzel can send you to some of them too. So thank you for asking that. I don't get to talk about it. Hey.
Very possible.
Okay.
What is a hope that you have for the future of children and adults with blindness?
Try that again, Andy.
What is a hope that you have for the future of those who have blindness?
I hope, and I work on this too. I dream of a day when we all think of blindness as a characteristic that is just about as important as the color of your eyes or hair. Remember, there was a time that if you didn't have a particular physiognomy or a particular color of hair or from a particular nationality, and we still see this today, that people think less of you. People won't hire you. I dream of the day when people, if I go in to apply for a job, it's a given that the ways for me to do it are going to be there. I don't have to sit down and educate the employer about blindness and explain to him how I do the normal things that everybody else does. It really gets annoying after the first 50 or 60 interviews. I dream of a day when, if you are a blind couple and you have a baby, you don't worry that the local social worker is going to come and take that baby away from you because you're blind. And they don't know how a blind person can raise a child. So obviously you can't. And then you have to go to court to get your baby back. I hope that never happens again, but it will. I've seen it happen too many times. I want blindness to be normal, and everybody just assumes that we can do what we want to do. And that's years away. But you're helping it happen.
Dave,
All right, now we have other sessions coming up. Please check your agenda and,
yeah, our next session starts at 9.
okay, good. That gives everybody a little time. And thank you for spending the morning with me this morning.